Welcome, everybody, to Wood with Handles, a baseball podcast for fans by fans. This is episode 8 for the week of June 3rd. I'm Ryan.
I'm Josh.
I'm Carl.
First this week, we want to talk about the Royals hiring George Brett to replace their hitting coaches. Essentially, they sent their current hitting coaches down to the minor leagues and hired former Royal George Brett to be the interim hitting coach. From what I understand, it's kind of a trial period. If it works out, he gets a job. If it doesn't, goodbye. How do you guys feel?
Yeah, it doesn't really make a difference for me. I think they're such a terrible team hitting anyways that it really, I don't think it's going to make a big deal, to be honest with you. George Brett was one of the all-time greats, but being that it's the Royals and it's always going to be the Royals until they can prove me different or prove me wrong, I just don't see any difference in it.
I kind of agree with where Ryan's going. I mean, they are a really bad team. You know, I don't know if this is almost like a PR stunt. Like, look, George Brett, he's been a Royal for ever and ever. Let's give him a chance. And according to him, he doesn't even know how to coach, how to hit. I mean, so we'll see.
Well, since he's been there, it's only been 3 games, but they're 2-3. I don't know if you can directly attribute it to that, but they've been playing like shit, and 2 wins in 3 games is kind of impressive.
Yeah, this is what the Royals are. I mean, they're not terribly bad in hitting. They're in the middle of the MLB. They're 13th ranked in hitting, but it was a move that had to be made. I think everybody could see it coming. They had to shake things up a bit. So I think George Brett, being the most notable face and kind of the biggest name in Royals history, is hopefully it was the right move for him. But I just, like I said, it's one of those things I don't see it happening regardless of who the coach is.
Well, I think it definitely saves Ned Yost's job for maybe until the end of the year. So there's that. Well,
I mean, could this be a thing where George Brett eventually becomes the manager if Yost is gone at the end of the season?
That's what people have been hinting towards, is that this is kind of their way of easing him into the organization, and that already apparently, obviously it's all rumors, but Ned Yost has been kind of a little bit paranoid about what they're doing and asking a lot of questions.
I mean, if so, it's probably a good PR move for him. But once again, it's the Kansas City Royals. They start the first couple weeks off hot every year, and then they just fall into oblivion. But, hopefully it'll work out for them. We'll see.
Yeah, it's a shame that they're playing terrible, but they are. The other day they played, I believe it was Thursday, Ryan said, they played the St. Louis Cardinals, part of the big interleague play this past week. That game got delayed twice. The second delay was in the 9th inning. It ended up going, and I'm sure Ryan can correct me, but it ended up going like 13 or 15 innings or something like this. Overnight, didn't end until like 3:15 in the morning. And that caused a little bit of controversy about when you should call a game and why you should call a game. It's kind of one of the bigger stories of the week. What do you guys think about the umpires not calling the game, allowing them to play it?
Yeah, it was, I don't know, man. It was a mess. It got done at 3 in the morning. After I forget how long, to be honest, I forget how many innings it was, but it was definitely a mess, and it was kind of the big thing about it last week was, should this game have gone that long?
From what I know about it, the reason they didn't call the game was because the Royals came back in the 9th. They had scored like 3 or 4 runs in the 9th, and they came back, and basically they were tied or they were down by a run. Because then in the bottom of the 9th, or I don't know how it worked, maybe this happened all in the 8th or whatever, but basically the Cardinals ended up scoring 1 run, so they didn't want the game to be called because of rain after the Royals had just came back. They wanted the game to end naturally, and then obviously things ended up getting tied, and they went into a bunch of extra innings and ended up finishing the next day, but I don't disagree with it. I'm glad that they let the teams decided on the field instead of it just being decided by weather. I know this happened in a couple other games this past week since then too, where I know the Cubs actually, they played last night after like a 3-hour rain delay, and happened the other day someone got delayed for like 4 hours and they still played, and it's just causing a lot of controversy about at what point do you call the game.
I mean, that's exactly the thing. They were in a rain delay for 4.5 hours. I mean, how long do you let these teams stay out there, regardless of who, what team came back? It's 4.5 hours. It's a long time.
I mean, yeah, I don't disagree with that. I like that it was played on the field, and I mean, weather is part of that variable that we all. I mean, we like the human error of baseball. We like the weather causes the game to be played different. So I don't know. It's for me. I don't disagree with it, but I think it would have been a different situation if it would have started pouring like that. There would have been a 4-hour delay in like the second inning.
Yeah, just a quick correction. The game actually didn't go into extras. It went to full 9.
Oh, okay.
So it was a full 9 innings, and they finished at 3:14 Central Time. So I mean, the game would have started at 7. So you do the math.
Yeah. Wow.
That's an 8-hour game.
But I mean, that's what you get paid to do. You get paid to play baseball, and I mean, I don't know. To me, I don't disagree with that. I think it was a good choice to keep them playing.
You know, for the teams, maybe, but I guess from a fan's point of view, it would have been terrible. I mean, I didn't get to see the end of the game, obviously, because it was at 3, or it would have been 4:14 here in Eastern time. But I mean, for anybody that was there, I mean, for the players themselves, they got to be a little tired, and it brings into question how long is too long to, keep a game playing.
I don't think there's a time limit. I mean, there is, but I don't think there's a realistic time limit. Obviously, a game starts going 12, 15 hours, then you call it. But, I mean, 4-hour delay isn't that big of a deal to me. I mean, if there comes a point when you're talking like 6-hour delay, I mean, that's half the day. Call the game at that point. But, I mean, 4-hour delay to me isn't that long. I mean, it's about the length of the game. So, I mean, it just outright just doesn't bother me that much.
So my question is, excuse me, this game was delayed twice or just once?
It was delayed twice.
I say Ryan can correct me, but I believe it was twice.
So was it delayed like at the start and then later on in like the 8th?
Yes, I believe it was delayed like first, second, third inning, somewhere around there. But that delay was only like an hour or something like that. It wasn't very long.
See, and I'm okay with playing after a delay like that. The second delay, once it gets past like midnight, just resume it the next day. I mean, I don't get what the big deal is of just waiting.
But you resume it the next day for a half inning?
Well, yeah, why not?
Well, what happened was St. Louis was up. I think they were up 2-1 heading into heading into the 9th, and KC scored 3 in the 9th to make it 4-2. So, I mean, that's where the bulk of the rain delay came in. It was at the middle of the 9th, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Well, I mean, if the game is already at, past 12, and then you start a rain delay, and 3 in the morning, how do you go, all right, we can resume this? Why don't you just wait until the next morning?
They didn't resume at 3 in the morning. The game finished at 3 in the morning. They resumed, I think, at like 1 or 2.
Yeah, I mean, they only had a half an inning to play, but I mean, still, like Carl said, it was the bulk of the rain delay was in the heading into the bottom of the 9th. I mean, I guess, like you said, Josh, you want to let the game play out, but when is when? How long is long enough to call a game?
Well, you said it was a 4-hour delay?
4.5 hours.
Yeah, see, that's just silly to me, because after so long, it's like, well, it's past midnight or whatever, it's the next day. You might as well just give up on tonight and just wait until the morning, because it's only an inning. I mean, I think baseball's done that before. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, this isn't a postseason game, so.
Yeah. I mean, they've commonly finish games on different days. So, yeah, it's not that different. In that same game, though, the Cardinals had brought up rookie pitcher Michael Wacha. Nobody, at least I don't know a ton about him until this game, but he had a pretty impressive first game. I mean, it's quite the historic game to have it as a first game, but I mean, it was pretty crazy. I mean, he had pretty great numbers, and I know it's only the Royals, but it's still
the team that we just destroyed saying can't bat, so.
Yeah, I think coming out as a rookie, I mean, middle of the season, you're a call-up, so it's not like this man has been with this team from the beginning and whatnot. I mean, he had, I mean, at least like I said, in my opinion, a rather, what was Michael Wacha's numbers?
I've got it right here. It was 7 innings pitched, 7 innings pitched, 2 hits, 1 run, 1 earned run, 6 strikeouts.
Yeah, I mean, again, like we discussed, the Royals aren't that good, but I think that's impressive. I don't know, as a rookie starter, obviously nobody's like saying he's a Justin Verlander or a Matt Harvey, but I mean, I do think it's notable, and obviously it says a lot about the Cardinals farm system. I mean, they've always had a good farm system, and it's something they're probably most noted for is how good their farm system is.
Yeah, they've got a history of bringing pitchers through that system, whether it be Waka or Wainwright or Carpenter or anybody. They've got a history of having good pitchers in their system and bringing them through. So I mean, Waka could be the next big thing there. We hope.
I mean, even if he's not the next big thing, I mean, to contribute, I'm not sure who he's replacing in that rotation, but I mean, any team would want to be able to just bring somebody up like that and have a pretty successful game. I mean, like I said, we're not talking all-star numbers, but we're talking above average numbers.
Yeah, and for a first time out, those are pretty good numbers. 7 innings, 2 hits, 6 strikeouts. That's pretty good. I mean, Granted, it was against the Royals, and you can take that for what it's worth, but for your first time out on the mound in the big leagues, that's a hell of an outing.
Yeah. I know, Carl, you're not as impressed with it because of it being the Royals, but I mean, to an extent, you have to admit that it's somewhat impressive.
Well, yeah, it's somewhat impressive to do it against any major league team. You know, like we were saying, it's the Royals who can't hit, so.
Yeah, it's true, and I mean,
good luck to the kid. Hopefully he can keep this up and do something, but until I see some other starts, I'm not going to, jump on a bandwagon, if you will, about his greatness.
Yeah, we're going to have to let it see how it plays out. Like you said, it's one outing, and it was the Royals for what it's worth, but, like we just said a minute ago, that's what it is. It's the Cardinals who have a history of having good pitchers come through their system.
Absolutely.
Well, good players, period. I mean, their minor league system, I don't know how they keep rebuilding it, but they do.
Yeah.
Yes. And I guess speaking of a team that's kind of rebuilding, maybe not rebuilding, but kind of in a different way, the Yankees, there's been a lot kind of going on with the Yankees this week. I mean, Mariano Rivera blew his first save. They get swept by the Mets in the Subway Series down there, and then they've got a series right now with the Yankees. They're going to get a few guys back. Where you guys see the things heading for the Yankees?
You said Yankees, but they're playing the Red Sox right now. They won the first game, which is their first win in I think 5 games. They lost the second game, and we'll see tonight. By the time we release this podcast, they will have played that game, but we won't know the score of it yet. I think they started out really hot, and they were able to do very, very well with essentially no talent outside of Cano and Rivera and maybe CC Sabathia to an extent. But without their big home run hitters and their big run scorers. In recent weeks, they've kind of started to die off. I think getting Youkilis and Teixeira back will help, but I mean, it's not the end-all be-all solution. I mean, when you start to slide like this, it's hard to keep up, especially in arguably the toughest division in baseball.
Yeah, they started off so well. I think they played a little bit better than anybody's expectations would have had them playing, and I think everybody hits a losing streak within the season, no matter how good or bad you are. It's going to happen to every team. But I think as of yesterday, they've lost 4 out of the previous 6, and the way they've been going, that's a pretty big slide for them.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll be fine. Like you said, the season's a grind. So what? It's a couple games. I mean, the Mets swept the Yankees, and then the Mets got swept by, Marlins. That's just how baseball works. So they'll figure it out. They'll get their guys back. They'll be fine. That offense will be fine.
Yeah, I think they will, especially once they start getting people back. I'm not sure that we'll see A-Rod or Jeter anytime soon, but I mean, they're going to start filling those people in. Granderson's going to eventually get healthy again and come back, and I mean, they'll be able to score those runs, and I mean, obviously they have some good bench players and minor league players that have been up there filling in. So they're in a good spot in case these people do get hurt, or, I mean, obviously they have a lot of age on their team. They need rest or whatever.
Like you were just saying, A-Rod, I don't think you'll ever see A-Rod in a Yankees pinstripe jersey again. But Jeter, as of this past week, this next week coming up, or at least actually, I'm sorry, this week coming up, they said he was starting to resume a little activity, which was playing catch and then taking a few ground balls here and there. So they might get him back a little sooner than expected, maybe, but we'll see.
I'll say before playoffs, but that's if they make playoffs at all. I mean, the way he comes back, I think he's trying to rush things too much, and I don't know. We'll kind of see where that heads. Something we talked about on our Facebook page and online in general was rivalries in baseball, and obviously the Yankees and the Red Sox are one of the biggest rivalries. With the way things have been, kind of with injuries and the Red Sox of last year, do you think that rivalry still is what it used to be?
Until they meet again in like a playoff situation, I don't feel it as much as I did, when the Red Sox were winning World Series and the Yankees were winning the World Series, and it was just them. Like, it was just them in the AL East and everybody else. But now that division is so wide open and, they don't meet in the postseason, I don't feel like it's as strong as it used to be in the last 5 to 10 years.
I think it's still pretty strong. I mean, the names will always be the Red Sox versus Yankees. The names are going to change and players are going to be different, but nonetheless, it's still the biggest rivalry in baseball and one of the biggest in sports. Yeah, watching them actually play each other sucks because it seems like it takes 8 hours for the games to from start to end, but it's still a big rivalry.
I still think historically it's one of the biggest, or the biggest, however you put it, but I agree with Carl. I think it's kind of lost its pizzazz. You don't really see it as much anymore. I mean, it's a lot of it has to do with the way things have been, though, with all the big names in New York getting hurt recently, and kind of a bunch of nobodies and odd trades that Boston made that have ended up working in their favor. That's kind of been odd, and everything's kind of been odd with those two cities. But I mean, Boston's winning, oddly, and the Yankees are also winning a lot of games. So I don't know. I think it's still good. I think the way they're playing now is more respectable than before. We always talk about that, but it's definitely more interesting.
Yeah, who would have thought both these teams are playing, kind of a more traditional style of baseball rather than just having the big names slugging it out for their teams and slugging it out together.
Well, I mean, if you want a rivalry, maybe, someone needs to pitch inside and maybe some scuffles, words, anything. It seems so tame now.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's only my problem. Like, I'm not saying, like, hey, the Red Sox have to go out and they have to be mucilous. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, be a little more intense. Like, it doesn't seem as intense.
I agree. I completely agree with you. I think historically it will always have that kind of, it's the rivalry between the two big teams in baseball, but in recent time it hasn't really been there. Something that's also been kind of big in the past few weeks has been interleague play. Obviously this year we have interleague play throughout the whole season, which has been odd, at least for me. I don't enjoy it. I liked it before when we only had it for those few weeks in the middle of the season. But this past week has been like the big. You got the Subway Series in New York and crosstown.
Yeah, it's been the rivalry series for interleague play for and MLB.
Yeah, and it's been interesting. And
I don't know though, but I'm sorry to step on what you're saying here, but the Tigers and Pirates actually kind of developed a nice little rivalry this past weekend.
Well, almost all the games went into. Correct me if I'm wrong, but, I feel like the Tigers have played the Pirates a lot in interleague play in the last, 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody has their kind of interleague kind of rival, but, yeah, I mean, it's been a fun weekend. I enjoy it. I love seeing interleague play, but, the one thing that makes interleague play fun for me is, the DH or lack of DH when playing National League teams. There's been a lot of talk about whether the National League will ever adopt the DH. How do you guys feel, or when do you guys feel that will happen?
I think it's going to happen in the next few years. I think the DH, and Josh and I, you and I actually had a conversation off the air about this, but I think the DH is probably the best way for both leagues to go because it doesn't give one team over another in either interleague or a World Series matchup. I think the DH is, while I think watching pitchers hit is kind of more fun and more natural, I just think that the DH is going to be something that's going to work best for both teams because the American League is definitely at a bigger disadvantage.
Yeah. I would love to see DH on both sides. I do like the fact that you have the difference between the two leagues, and on one side you have the pitchers hitting, and on the other side you don't. But I just think it's really fun to see the DHs. I mean, for me, I'm obviously, we've talked about it before, but I like the Adam Dunns of the baseball world where whether you strike out a lot, it doesn't matter. You're still hitting 40 plus home runs. And I mean, that's your job as a DH. And I think that makes things interesting. And for the non-baseball enthusiast, just the casual watcher, the home run is what makes the game interesting. And the DH is there to do that. And it's the slam dunk of baseball.
See, I'm the exact opposite of you guys. I want to get rid of the DH in the American League. I feel like the National League managers are better than their American League counterparts because there's so much more strategy involved with your pitcher hitting.
Yeah, I definitely think there's more strategy. I mean, especially once it comes towards the end of the game, you can start subbing in pitch hitters and whatnot.
And double switches. And, I mean, the offensive numbers are high now. I mean, the reason the DH came into existence was the American League wanted a way to get more runs, higher scores, because, you know, they just got done with the late 60s, which was just so pitch dominant that they wanted a way to get bigger numbers. Well, the bigger numbers are here. We don't need a DH anymore for these big numbers.
But the DH is allowing some of the older players to play longer.
Well, if they need to play longer, then stick them in the field. Stick them on first base. Something.
See, I'm kind of caught in between the middle. I think, Josh, you're kind of all in on the DH, and Carl, you're all in on the pitchers hitting. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle with it. I mean, I like seeing pitchers hit, and I think it's kind of a fun thing watching pitchers hit in the NL, especially if you're not familiar with the National League. But I think for the American League, it definitely puts the pitchers at a disadvantage because, I mean, you take somebody like Yu Darvish or Dustin Verlander, can you see them hitting, especially when they don't even take warm-ups or they don't take batting practice before the games, things like that. It's tough either way around for American League pitchers would transition to hitting. I just don't think it would work well for the MLB.
The transition would be rough, but I mean, the rookies and the younger kids would handle it a lot better. But that's not my issue so much. I think the higher runs is a thing, and yet while we're getting it, we're not getting it fully. I mean, there are games like the Tigers had this past week where it was 11-3 or whatever, but that's not an everyday thing. I mean, even in the American League, you have a lot of games finishing 1-0 or 2-1, and I mean, to me, I like the home runs. I like the DH position. If I was a general manager, I want my pitcher sitting on the bench, not potentially getting hit by a ball. Like, I would rather not have my pitcher hit.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and pitchers are definitely treated like prima donnas these days, and one little thing and pitchers are out of the game. And I just think if you're in the AL, risking a pitcher getting hurt from swinging the bat or pulling a muscle or, like you said, getting hit, something like that is probably a huge concern for all of the managers in the AL.
Speaking of the National League, Pittsburgh Pirates have been doing pretty good lately. They gave the Tigers a little bit of struggle this past weekend, but they've been having quite the success in their bullpen, especially with their saves. I'm not sure his name off the top of my head, but their closer.
Really?
Jason Grilli.
Yeah, he has the most saves in all of baseball.
Part of the Detroit Tigers roster.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I have his autograph somewhere on a baseball.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's impressive. I mean, this is a team they're always good for the first part of the season, but they're never really this good.
Well, I think the problem is going to be that bullpen because, I mean, I've read that they've thrown the second most innings in the majors. I mean, you can't tax a bullpen like that for a full season. It will break.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, they're second ranked pitching team in the MLB right now. I mean, they've got a team average of their team average ERA is 3.16, so they're definitely doing something right. I mean, they've gotten a lot of good pitching from their starters, so I think that helps. But I mean, to tax your bullpen so much is not a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, taxing your bullpen like that will definitely not benefit you. Obviously, the old saying of you're only as good as your bullpen right now is probably the most prevalent nowadays. I mean, we talk about pitchers being prima donnas, but I mean, the most successful teams have great closers and relief pitchers.
Yeah, like we've been saying, I don't think taxing your bullpen is quite the way to go. They've been pretty good with their starters. The starters have got a lot of good quality innings out of them and a lot of good starts. But at the same time, Pittsburgh's one of those teams that's kind of known for starting the very first half or the first half of the season playing well, and then they have a collapse the second part of the season. So I think they've hung around and played better than anybody would have thought them to. But they play in the NL Central, so we'll see. But like you said, they can't rely on their bullpen too much.
Speaking of the NL Central, the NL Central is right now probably the best or the toughest division in all of baseball. I'm not sure if the stat still is valid, but on Baseball Tonight they were talking about how every other team in baseball, with the exception of Texas, every first place team in baseball, with the exception of Texas, would be in fourth place in the NL Central.
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of a crazy little note, and just I guess it kind of speaks to how good that division has been this year.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Obviously here in Chicago we went and seen Cubs Sox, and I mean the Cubs are a good team. Statistically, they're worlds better than the White Sox are, and I mean statistically, really they're worlds better than what most teams are, and I believe they're in third or fourth place in their division.
Yeah, right now the Cubs are in fourth place with a record of 32-23, but St. Louis is leading the division at 37-19, and you have Cincinnati and Pittsburgh dead tied at 35-22 each. So, I mean, it's definitely probably going to be the most competitive division in baseball. We'll have to let it see how it plays out in the second half, but it's going to be fun to watch throughout the remainder of the season.
Who do you guys think is going to finish on top?
St. Louis.
Yeah, I agree, St. Louis. I think they're definitely they're in it for the long haul. I think they're built for the long haul a little bit better than Cincinnati is. Their pitching is more solid. I think that Cincinnati might have a couple better hitters, but I think St. Louis is got the better pitching rotation in the NL Central. That's definitely where it's going to be needed.
Just to be opposite of you guys, I'll take Cincinnati and St. Louis with the wild card.
That's fine. I wouldn't mind either way because I like both teams and I respect both teams.
Yeah, I mean, neither teams are teams that anybody should have any major issues with. I mean, they don't play dirty ball, and they play just good baseball overall. Speaking of teams, another team that has been playing very good ball. The Orioles have been playing really good, and someone who has been coming into a lot of conversation as of late is Chris Davis. Currently has the most home runs in baseball.
Yeah, he hit his 20th today, so he's 3 ahead of Miguel Cabrera, who's in second with 17. Chris Davis has been kind of the heart of that lineup, so I think he's going to be one to keep your eye on. Whether he keeps hitting at this pace, we'll see, but I mean, would it be too out of the box to see him winning the MVP if he does have this many home runs?
If he keeps it up, absolutely. I think he stands a chance to be MVP, but I really think in everybody's head right now, the conversations between Trout and Cabrera.
Mike Trout, we've been here, done that time and time again over Mike Trout. And obviously Miguel Cabrera's always on everybody's radar with as good as he is. But I think Chris Davis is something you want to keep an eye on. I myself said I don't think Cabrera will win another MVP as long as, outside of him hitting the Triple Crown again and the Tigers making the playoffs. I think if Baltimore makes a run and Chris Davis keeps hitting like he is, he'll be one of the front runners outside of Yu Darvish.
Yeah, I think Darvish stands a chance. I mean, Darvish is doing phenomenal, but I don't know what it is about the Orioles because Manny Machado's kind of in the same bucket where both of these guys have.
Yeah, statistically, Machado has been hitting better than both Bryce Harper and Trout this year.
And I mean, Chris Davis obviously doing better than home run wise, better than Miguel Cabrera, Trout. I mean, everybody. And yet, these two names are names that never come up in any discussion. I mean, recently Chris Davis has been in the MVP discussion, but I mean, we're talking like the past week. That's about it.
Yeah, well, Davis has got 20 home runs and 52 RBIs. He's hitting 357, and Machado right below him, hit him 327. He's got only 5 home runs and 30 RBIs, but I mean, he's kind of more of he's, I guess, a better day-to-day player.
Well, Machado has like 72 hits. He's like second in the league in hits. So
he's got 80 hits right now. Yep.
The kid can hit.
Yeah, flat out. He's a great hitter.
Yeah, and I mean, I obviously being a big Trout fan, I won't deny that he's a great hitter, or even Chris Davis is obviously doing really great. It's just, to me, it's more weird that obviously I know they're not as big market as the Tigers or the Angels, but I mean, how are these guys getting overlooked in every discussion?
Well, I don't think Chris Davis was, because he had the hottest start ever. He had 4 home runs and 16 or 17 RBIs in the first 5 games.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, he
was not overlooked. I mean, he had the hottest start I think anyone's ever had. So, I mean, he's been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been consistent, like you said, Carl. He had that hot start and kind of kept it consistent through the year, and now he's been hot again over the last couple of weeks. But I guess my main reason is because he's with Baltimore. I mean, we haven't covered Baltimore a lot, and maybe he's still one of the teams Baltimore is one of those teams that's still kind of flying under the radar, especially playing in the division with the Yankees, who have been really good, and the Sox having this resurgence. So maybe that's one of the reasons why they haven't gotten the coverage. And along with Miguel Cabrera and Trout, they're not household names yet.
Yeah, I agree.
So we knew Baltimore was going to be somewhat good after the success. I mean, they went to the postseason last year, so it's not like they were a sub-500 team last year. And it's like, oh wait, who are these Orioles? Yeah. I mean, Casey Wieters has always been there.
Yeah, I like them. I like Buck Showalter. I mean, there's a lot to like about the Orioles. So yeah, I mean, bravo to them. My only problem with the Orioles, I don't think they could make the postseason because I don't think their starting 5 could be that deep.
Well, we'll see. They did it last year, and I mean, they were right there against New York, and then they blew it in the last couple of games, but they were right there. But I kind of have a quick side question. With the new playoff rules, do you think this could be a year where you could see 3 teams from the same division making it? Because I think Baltimore right now is in the spot to be one of the wild cards outside of New York.
No, I think it'll be New York, Boston in that division, and I think the Angels will make it as a wild card, and Texas will be in first from the West, and Detroit will come out of the Central.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I don't know if that would be something that would happen. You'd see 3 teams from one division be in the playoffs. It could happen.
If it ever did happen, I think that would prove Bud Selig needs to already get rid of this extra wild card.
I like the extra wild card. It makes things fun.
Yeah, I agree. I was a little skeptical on it until last year, but the way those games went, I think it worked well.
I was skeptical about it, and then that horrible blown call in the first game that I saw of it, so I am not a fan of it.
Yeah, but I don't think you can let a blown call kind of sway you either way, because I mean, that's an umpire, and you see how that's gone this year.
Yeah.
It turned me off to the idea of that, because I mean, it's the postseason. In a best of 5 or a best of 7 series, one blown call is not going to make that much of a difference, because you still have to win 2 or 4 games in the series. But this is a one-time, one game.
Yeah. I mean, I like it. I think it's intense, and I mean, it's one game, so it gets you down to that one wild card right away anyways. I mean, it's almost like a false hope for whatever team makes it.
I can understand what you said. Like, they have the team that makes out of their wild card spot, and you have a great season, you get into the playoffs, and one game and you're done. I can see that argument.
Yeah.
I mean, I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it like a race again almost, but, that's never going to happen like it used to with all these divisions and within the league. I mean, I'd love to see an old-fashioned pennant race where it's, the best from the AL versus best of the NL in the World Series. I don't really care much for all the playoff rounds. I mean, it would make the regular season that much more interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Going from one good team to a not so good team, the LA Dodgers, Matt Kemp just recently got hurt going on the DL. Matt Kemp currently has 0 home runs for the year. How do you think this impacts the Dodgers?
Doesn't at all.
Yeah, it's
Kemp has
not
had
even
no
an
production.
issue.
Yeah, Kemp has had no production at all this year, and I think him being hurt, while he's a hell of a guy, it sounds like he's a great guy in real life, they're not getting anything out of him, so I don't know what it hurts in the long run. They're playing terrible baseball right now, so I don't think this affects them one bit, and they just got to keep moving forward, or try to at least.
Yeah, I don't think there's really any moving forward. They're terrible.
Well,
yeah, they're really bad.
I think the reason they're so bad isn't the reason they're so bad because they are last year's Red Sox.
Yeah.
Now they're the Red Sox of the West, and look, they're not going to win with that team.
Yeah. I mean,
if the Red Sox couldn't do it, I don't know. That's why I didn't understand the trade in the first place with the Dodgers. It's like, what did LA stand to gain? I mean, they lost so much out of that. So
lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you found out the reason that Boston let these guys go. I think that Boston knew they saw the writing on the wall. And yeah. I think to an extent, Los Angeles took the bait.
Yeah, I mean, it was names, and names, as we've discussed before, names are jersey sales and ticket sales, and I mean, it's PR to an extent, but I mean, it's names. They sell tickets. Not going to
sell a bunch of tickets, not winning games, especially not in LA.
Well, it sold season tickets.
Yes.
Oh, look at all these names. I'm going to buy season tickets to see the Dodgers, and then it's like, oh, I just threw away fucking a couple grand to see these assholes play. So,
yeah, that's true.
And you can't get that money back. So, well played, Dodgers. You just suckered a bunch of Los Angelinians, or however you call it. You suckered them. Good job.
Yeah.
Good job, Magic Johnson. Good job, Magic Johnson.
I think LA definitely took a killing or took a real bad hurting on those contracts too. I mean, that was not a good look for those guys, not at all.
No.
Especially with the Diamondbacks, who's a team that we have not discussed at all to date. The Diamondbacks, who are winning that division and will win that division because they have a bunch of young kids.
Paul Goldschmidt's a beast.
So good on you, Diamondbacks.
Yeah. I mean, nobody really had the Diamondbacks even contending in that division, and now, I mean, they're impressive. They're playing good baseball. Staying in the National League, heading back to the East Coast, the Nationals, they're in some trouble. Harper has finally
breaks my heart.
Harper's been put on, or now has officially been put on the disabled list. Steven Strasburg hurt his lower oblique last night.
It said a right lat. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. He's hurt, needless to say. He won't be playing for a while.
Either way, like you said, Josh, they are in deep trouble.
I mean,
yeah, it's bad. It's real bad for the Nationals right now, and I think a lot of people, including myself, and you guys know where I stand on the Nationals or stood. Yeah, it's a bad deal for them right now. I mean, they're falling apart faster than anybody would have thought. I had them in the World Series. I even had them winning the World Series.
I had them in the World Series.
I think I had them in the World Series too.
Strasburg's hurt, so they're not getting anything out of him, and as long as Harper's keeps going at 180%, not just being reckless and not caring about his body, that's what it's going to look like for the Nationals.
Well, okay, so Strasburg's hurt. I get it. That hurts your team, but let's be fair. he wasn't doing anything when he wasn't hurt. He was
starting to pick it up. He was starting to pick it up a little bit. You saw signs of him coming back.
He was 2-6 with an ERA above 3.
He wasn't last year's form, but he's still an arm.
Well, I know he's still an arm.
And now you're going to be bringing up some guy from, I don't even know what their minor league system is, but you're going to be bringing up some guy from their AAA who arguably has probably never seen a big league start before. Or you're bringing somebody out of the bullpen. Still, it's not a good thing. He wasn't the ace that he was last year, but they have Zimmerman now, who is an ace. And if you can just have a good 2 or 3 pitchers there to start at the top of your rotation, then for the most part, you can be pretty set.
Well, Washington, they had Strasburg, then they had
Gio
Gonzalez, and then Jordan Zimmerman. So that's a solid starting 3. That's as solid as it gets right there. And now they have to basically Gonzalez has been average, and then Jordan Zimmerman has been the a workhorse of the lineup, or the rotation rather. And now you just have to hope and pray that you can get something out of both Zimmerman and Gonzalez and almost be superhuman every start.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's going to help. I think they're screwed.
I don't think they're screwed yet. If you're sticking with the Angels winning the AL West, I am not going to give hope on the Nationals.
I got my Angels still.
To be honest, I think Los Angeles stands a better chance of making the playoffs right now than Washington does. They're a game under 500. They played well below expectation, and they've been kind of sloppy as a team defensively all year. They make a number of errors. They're just not good. They just haven't been good this year, and maybe that's because they're a young team finding their way. But at the same point, they're not good right now.
I think there's a lot of expectations put on their shoulders this year, and
yeah, it was a lot for a team who just last year had kind of maybe it was a one-hit wonder sort of thing for a minute, but I think there was a lot of expectation put on him from the very start, and I think all of us kind of hyped into that a little too, but rightfully so.
Yeah. One last story before we go today. This story kind of encapsulates everything that we talked about today, from pitchers to hitting to the DH to pitchers hitting. Justin Verlander has announced that he wants to be voted into the Home Run Derby.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is one of the stupidest things I've ever read. I'm sorry. It really is. It's a gimmick.
The Home Run Derby's a gimmick.
I know, but you saw how well Justin Verlander performed in last year's All-Star game. He didn't really take it too seriously, and now he's sitting here saying, oh, yeah, I want to hit in the Home Run Derby. He hasn't been really that great this year. Maybe he should focus a little less on playing it or hitting in a Home Run Derby and focusing a little more on pitching.
He's picked it back up. I never worry about him. If he wants to go out and try to hit some dingers, good for him. It's the Home Run Derby.
I think it's hilarious. I do think it's a PR thing. I don't think he actually wants to be in the Home Run Derby.
No, absolutely not.
But yeah, sure. Let him join the Home Run Derby. I would love to see it.
The man has 0 career hits. If he wants to hit in the Home Run Derby, I'm for it.
It'll be really fun up until he hits 0 home runs in the first round of the Home Run Derby and is gone in 5 minutes.
He's not Brandon Inge. That won't happen. I guarantee you he could hit at least 1.
Yeah, Matt Kemp said he could hit last year too, and he hit 0 in the Home Run Derby. And that's for a hitter who hits home runs. Well,
come on.
See, Matt Kemp doesn't hit home runs.
Not this year.
Let's be fair, though. The Home Run Derby is at Shea Stadium. It's not exactly, or Citi Field, whatever the fuck the corporate name is.
City.
It's not that hard to hit a home run in that ballpark.
I think it's funny. I would love to see him in the Home Run Derby. It would do nothing but make the All-Star game for him.
How many home runs would Verlander hit if he was in a Home Run Derby?
1.
2.
0.
Let's see if he can even make the Home Run Derby. If he gets in the Home Run Derby, we got to write this down. So.
First of all, is that a new thing where you have to get voted in? Did they do that last year?
I don't know if it's a voted in or I don't know. He might not have said voted in, but he
he said voted in.
Oh, okay. He wants to be in it essentially, and Basically,
I don't know how they choose it, but I know they have captains, and the captains have to pick.
Huh. Interesting.
Weird. Well,
And I think players, like, if, like, say someone's like, Prince Fielder, I want you in the home run derby, he can be like, well, no, I don't want to. So.
Interesting.
Well,
yeah.
Justin Verlander, home run derby, 2013.
I got one.
I got 2.
I'm staying with 0. Well, that's our show for the week. We'd like to thank everybody for listening and downloading the podcast over the last few weeks.
You can find us on Twitter at WoodWithHandles, Facebook.com/WoodWithHandles, and we are now on YouTube.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Josh.
I'm Carl. Let's party like it's 2001 Arizona Diamondbacks.